और नहीं क्लेम होते हैं
जो भी चीज़ें होती हैं मैं वही कह रहा हूँ क्लेम एंड कंप्लेंट
क्लेम लेने वाले कितने वापस आए वापस लेने वाले कितने को चीजें मिल गई वापस
तकरीबन 95% और कुछ बच्चे ऐसी भी बच गए आपके पास जो किसी ने क्लेम नहीं की अभी तक हैं वो हमारे पास मौजूद हैं
क्या जिस साल आ जाए
उसके अंदर एक मसला पता है कितनी देर रखनी है उसके बाद खा जानी है
लेने अभी तक रखी हुई है
लेकिन अनाउंसमेंट हो जानी चाहिए हर साल इसी दफा ये अनक्लेम चीज़ें हमारे पास बढ़ी।
अच्छा पब्लिक अनाउंसमेंट
बुलवा दिया फिर उसके ऑफिस के ऊपर
अच्छा
अनक्लेम स्टिल सम अनक्लेम एनीबॉडी
कैश का क्या है कैश का क्या मतलब
कैश अभी जेब में नहीं होता
नहीं है तो पड़ा हुआ हमारे पास तो करूँ क्या
दिमाग में हमारे तो खाएं
उसमें पाकिस्तानी 5 रुपए गए
जो भी हो उसको रिपोर्ट हुई थी कितना था इकट्ठा कौन सा था फिर जमा करवा दें लेकिन ये पता होना चाहिए हर एक का यूनिट क्या था मिलने का ताकि जब वो कोई पूछे तो उसको चेक कर लिया जाए किसी को ठीक है कितना है वैसे वो
10 पाउंड है गर्दन में 10 पाउंड और 5 पाउंड का 5 रुपए का एक पीस है बस एक रिवर पीस है छोटे अच्छा
रजिस्ट्रेशन आपको जी और ये पीछे आपके कारकुनान हैं या ज़ायरीन हैं फाउंडेशन और ये पीछे आपके कारकुनान हैं या ज़ायरीन हैं Just registered or you belong to the department standing behind them? Right. Residence, traffic, mulaqat, all these one? They have put 4 departments together. Each department has its own market. So there should be 4 different Muntazimin or Nazamin standing in front of this. Section reserve 1, ये खिदमत खल्क़िया खिदमत खल्क़िया सब डिपार्टमेंट ऐलान बड़ा होना चाहिए ये सब सेक्शन ये रखा हुआ है यहाँ आए ना आप खड़े हो यहाँ लोन की सेक्शन है ये रखा हुआ है अच्छा मुराद है बस تلاوت قرآن کریم مولانا منیر الدین شمس طاہر. تلاوت قرآن کریم.
اعوذ باللہ من الشیطان الرجیم. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. افحسب الذین کفروا ان یتخذوا عبادی من دونی اولیاء انا اعتدنا جہنم للکافرین نزلا. قل هل ننبئکم بالاخسرین اعمالا الذین ضل سعیہم فی الحیاۃ الدنیا وہم یحسبون انہم یحسنون صنعا. اولئک الذین کفروا بآیات ربہم ولقائہ فحبطت اعمالہم فلا نقیم لہم یوم القیامۃ وزنا. ذالک جزاؤہم جہنم بما کفروا واتخذوا آیاتی ورسلی ہزوا. ان الذین آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات کانت لہم جنات الفردوس نزلا خالدین فیہا لا یبغون عنہا حولا. قل لو کان البحر مدادا لکلمات ربی لنفد البحر قبل ان تنفد کلمات ربی لنفد البحر قبل ان تنفد کلمات ربی ولو جئنا بمثلہ مددا. قل انما انا بشر مثلکم یوحی الی انما الہکم الہ واحد فمن کان یرجو لقاء ربہ فلیعمل عملا صالحا ولا یشرک بعبادۃ ربہ احدا. The verses of the Holy Quran which I have just recited before you, these are أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Do the disbelievers think that they can take my servants as protectors instead of me? Surely we have prepared hell as an entertainment for the disbelievers. Say, shall we tell you of those who are the greatest losers in respect of their works, those whose labor is all lost in search after things pertaining to the life of this world, and they think that they are doing good works. Those are they who disbelieve in the signs of their Lord and in the meeting with Him. So their works are vain, and on the day of resurrection we shall give them no weight. That is their reward, hell, because they disbelieved and made a jest of my signs and my messengers. Surely those who believe and do good deeds will have gardens of paradise for an abode, wherein they will abide. They will not desire any change therefrom. Say, if the ocean became ink of the words of my Lord, for the words of my Lord, surely the ocean would be exhausted before the words of my Lord came to an end, even though we brought the light thereof as further help. Say, I'm only a man like yourselves, but I have received the revelation that your God is only one God. So let him who hopes to meet his Lord do good deeds, and let him join no one in the worship of his Lord.
لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Alhamdulillah, all praise be to Allah, who is providing us guidance, opportunity, strength and capability to perform the responsibilities which God Himself has bestowed upon us in the best of the spirit, in the best of style, and with the view to earn Allah's favor. That is the ultimate of all Jamaat Ahmadiyya organizations and responsibilities. Although it's very important for us to improve the quality of day-to-day working, but all important thing is to keep in view Allah's favor, and to win His favor must always be the objective of all our organizations and works which we perform. This is highly important, because once you begin to forget it, then all the blessing from your work will begin to disappear. Our Jamaat is not a worldly Jamaat. It is entirely dedicated to the cause of Allah, and as such to the cause of humanity, Allah's creation. And both these responsibilities, which in fact are pleasures more than responsibilities, either way you look at it, they in themselves have more connotation of pleasure than of burden. Both these are oriented towards ultimately the favor of Allah. And as such, if you receive His favor, with the grace of Allah, all your works will become easy, and things which seem to be progressing with difficulties, with breaks here and there, with obstructions of many sorts in the passage of your work, they will be removed as if by magic. This I have noticed throughout my life. This is the sum experience of my entire work in the cause of Allah, in whichever capacity I have served, that whenever I remembered prayer and remembered the ultimate purpose of this talk, whatever task was entrusted to me, as being to win Allah's favor, and all difficulties simply melted into thin air or nothingness, and a sort of easy flow was added to the work, as if you are running along the passage of strong winds, powerful winds, which make every step you take easier and lighter. So this is something which I keep reminding you, of which I keep reminding you, and will never tire of keeping reminding you, because I think this is the ultimate of everything that Jamaat Ahmadiyya is created for. So work in the cause of Allah with a specific intention, conscious intention, to win Allah's favor. If you do that, then you are helped in so many ways, more than one. First of all, it continues to build your character. Secondly, your relationship with your fellow workers is improved, and there can never be any marring incidents which appear due to friction. Friction disappears as you improve the quality of the work with the help of this constant consciousness that you must win Allah's favor. When you have that consciousness, the upper hand in your mind, have the upper hand in your mind, then in practical terms, becomes impossible for you to create difficulties for your fellow workers, or those who are under you, or those who are above you. Because the moment you begin to do that, if you have the analytical quality, you will realize it's always because of your ego. Your sense of superiority, which you want to express in so many ways, sometimes unconsciously, sometimes consciously. When you do it consciously, then it becomes a very wicked act which does not go with the quality of believers. But when you do it unconsciously, bad it is still, but of a lower order. And this type of evil behavior is something which lives with human beings forever. For that you have to be always conscious, always probing, always introspective, searching your own hearts regarding things you do as to why you do them and why you avoid certain things. So ultimate light which guides you as to your the rightness or correctness or falsehood of your behavior is the one which I have just mentioned. Whenever you apply this issue to the touchstone of God's play here, the answer will always be dependable and right. Whenever you're angry with your companion, whenever you feel hurt with the behavior of somebody else, always, before you react, think in terms of Allah's pleasure. And if you do not have a clear concept of how Allah's pleasure can be obtained in this particular issue, think of the noble images, the noble leaders in religion, whether of this time or of the past ages, but think always in terms of, like Hazrat Masih Maud al-Islam. Would he behave like this if he were here? And also remember that all that Hazrat Masih Maud al-Islam learnt was from his holy and our holy master, Hazrat Abdus Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So perhaps it is too artificial to think in mechanical terms, but it is not that which I have in mind. What I say is, if in doubt, then you can consciously apply this formula, and the answer will be always right. But normally in busy life, you do not have time, nor automatically you can bring up yourself up to thinking in these terms of deciding after you have thought of somebody, some noble figure in religion or some holy prophet, as if he were here, whether he would do it or not. So this seems to be a bit artificial and affected way of reaching the right conclusion. But what I have in mind is something else which must be explained here. You have to bring yourself up to a conduct which is woven after the pattern of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Hazrat Masih Maud alaihi salam for the application of the same model in the modern requirements, and of other people whom you know to be attempting their best to build themselves according to those models. Now, if you have a regular way of life and habit in doing these things, then these things become a sort of second nature with you. You don't have to stop and think in conscious terms as to whether if he were here he would do this, or he was there he would do that, but it becomes an automatic part of your system of thinking. But when in difficulty, if at all, then of course you can actually apply this to the example which I have given you, like the example I have given you, to some noble figure, the leading figure in that particular area, and his conduct in that particular area. And when you think of these things, then of course you're always rightly guided with the grace of Allah. That comes after long training and long exercise of learning. If you're not aware of the conduct of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in different situations, in different trials, under stresses, etc., etc., then perhaps however much you may try, you will not be able to benefit from that conduct which you do not know. So, with reference to this particular advice I am rendering you today, I want you to build this capability of behaving like Hazrat Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in a particular situation by improving your knowledge of his conduct in different situations. For instance, I can quote one example which particularly I have chosen to share with you this evening. Sometimes accidentally somebody is hurt and the normal spontaneous reaction sometimes is very severe. Somebody, for instance, hurts your toe, which has for ingrowing toenail, for instance, or with a badly hurting corn, somebody steps onto your toe. The automatic reaction would be that you would either slap him or throw him away, push him, even with such force as he would fall to the ground and may hurt himself. And sometimes this reaction is so automatic that even a holy man cannot have full control over such a reaction. This is exactly how it happened once at the time of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. While engaged in a battle, somebody walking backwards hit Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and put his and crushed Hazrat Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's toe under his heavy foot. The pain was so severe that Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam slightly touched him with his end of his arrow and said, "What have you done?" Next morning, that man could not sleep out of fear, out of shame for, not fear, out of shame for what he had done. And early in the morning he went to the mosque to seek pardon from Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And now Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was waiting to seek his pardon. He said, "Look here, I did that automatically without any intention to hurting you. Please forgive me for what I did." Now this is a situation which is coupled with human helplessness plus a highly trained conduct which is trained ultimately oriented towards the pleasure of Allah. Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam also showed this human automatic spontaneous reaction, but very mildly, so mildly that his action really did not hurt him. But even for that he did istighfar. And he was worried. And next morning, before he could seek his pardon, he approached him and said, "Forgive me for what I did yesterday." Now the same thing happened in another battle. The similar thing happened in another battle, and as a result of us, something occurred which has brightened the horizon of Islam by that small incident. Hazrat Rasulullah Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it is reported during Badr or perhaps some other battle, but I remember it to be Badr, was straightening the lines of those who were arranged in battle form. And while doing it, accidentally he hurt somebody slightly with his arrow. Of course not with the front of the arrow, but with the back of the arrow. He was using it and he slightly hurt somebody, and nobody took notice, neither he said anything nor Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said anything. Afterwards, before the battle was about to start, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam addressed the Sahaba and said, "Nobody knows what's going to happen, and we may be appearing, some of us may appear before God after this. So I want to announce this, that if by mistake I have inadvertently hurt anybody at all in any way, I invite you to take your revenge and do me exactly what I did by mistake." All Sahaba were startled. They were crying inside, but one went forward and said, "Ya Rasulullah, yes, you did something to me which hurt me." Now Sahaba, as it's reported, were boiling with rage suddenly. They were looking at that man. He said, "What sort of human being that is? And he calls himself a believer. Look at Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's conduct, beautiful conduct, and look at his response to it." He said, "Ya Rasulullah, you hurt me with an arrow, with your arrow while you were straightening the lines." So he said, "Come and strike me there where I struck you by mistake." He said it was on the back. Rasulullah turned his back to him. He said, "Ya Rasulullah, my back was not covered, while your back is covered by your shirt or whatever armor he was wearing." Rasulullah lifted his back, the cover from his back. He bent down, kissed the place, and started crying, seeking forgiveness. He said, "Ya Rasulullah, I did not know whether I would live again to see you or touch you. So this was the occasion you yourself provided me. This is my revenge." What a beauty. These are things which you do not read anywhere else in history. And these are the mystics of the moments of times when there's so much rush, their small things become totally unimportant and unmentionable. And the Battle of Badr, was a battle where everybody thought that he had come to give up his life and he would never return. At such moments, this was the conduct of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and this was the response of Sahaba. If during your works you remember these things, you don't have to stop and apply these examples to what your behavior should be in accordance with that. It becomes an automatic part of your life. It sinks into your system, it runs in your blood. And nothing but the best can be your response in situations of difficulties or accidents which like I have described before you. So that is one advice. Enrich yourself with the conduct of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and also with the conduct of Hazrat Masih Maud Salam, which was shaped by him but met the modern situations and day-to-day requirements of the current age. Once Hazrat Masih Maud salam was told of a sad incident. It was said that some people, from UP, who had a far more refined culture than Punjabis had, they arrived on a Tanga from Batala, and they had travelled a long way to reach Qadian by train. Then they took the Tanga from Batala and reached Qadian, and inquired from some person who was working in Mehman Khana at that time to if there was anybody to lift their luggage, or could they lift their luggage for them and put it to the rooms. And that man said, "You are all right, you have 2 arms, you have 2 legs, why don't you pick up your own luggage?" Now they belong to UP, and they are very sensitive in these things. So they said, "All right, we return from here." And without seeing Masih Maud, they decided to leave. Hazrat Masih Maud, and they had not eaten either. Hazrat Masih Maud, when he was told of this, he rushed to the Langar Khana. He asked for some bread, etc., so that he could carry that with him. And because there was nothing to wrap the bread in, he tore a part of his own turban and wrapped the bread in that. And then, as he used to walk very fast, he walked specially fast on that occasion and overtook them before they reached, or about the time when they reached the canal, which was about 2.5 miles from Qadian, and said, "I have come to apologize, and this is your food. At least you should have eaten the food before you left." Now this impressed them so much that they were ashamed for returning without seeing Hazrat Masih Maud. And of course, there was no choice but to become Ahmadis for them. So this is the conduct of Hazrat Masih Maud in relation to the guests who used to come to Qadian, and there's not just one such incident, there's so many. During a very chilly night, severe winter, in Qadian particularly, the chill is felt far more than in the chilliest night in England, because the houses are built differently. Provisions are very meager and inadequate to keep people warm there. So during such a chilly night, there were demand for more beddings, and all the available beddings had finished. So Masih Maud started bringing some bedding from his own house until everything was exhausted. So one of the companions who worked for Masih Maud, who went in and out, when he returned, he saw Hazrat Masih Maud reclining in a chair with his hands buried under his own armpits. And he said, "Yeah, Hazrat Masih Maud dressed him whatever he was dressed." He said, "You have nothing to cover yourself, not even your coat?" He said, "No, it's all right, I'm comfortable. But my guests were without any cover, without any warm clothing to save them from the winter chill. So whatever we had, we have given, but I'm very happy." And he insisted to remain like that the whole night. Now this is the conduct of Hazrat Masih Maud in relation to the guests who arrived. So you are receiving this Jalsa as you have always been receiving during all such occasions, not your guests, but Masih Maud's guests. And this is the conduct which I referred to in generality in the beginning, that must guide you as to how you must behave in such situations. At the time when you are inadvertently hurt by somebody, what your direction should be at the time when the overflow of guests creates some problems, either of food or of beddings or accommodation, etc. What should be your behavior? Now, you don't have to remember these things and apply them individually to the situation you are facing. What I'm saying is, they should be a part of your system that should run into your blood. You should know automatically, without consciously thinking for a solution, as to what the solution should be. And if you do this, then inshallah, forever and forever, Hazrat Rasul Akram sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's conduct would live forever among us, in us, and will become a part of our character, which we will hand over to the future generations. This gives me an opportunity now to turn to the second part of what I had in mind to address you about, and that is the training of the newcomers. For not a very long period, but for the last 10 years, gradually, I've seen with deep satisfaction that the older generations which used to work on such occasions were left to themselves previously, but gradually things improved and they started associating the younger generations with them, and slowly and gradually and to some imperceptibly, the shift was from the older to the younger generations. So that with the grace of Allah, now we have thousands of Ahmadis who previously were not a part of Ahmadiyya services, who have become an integral part of Ahmadiyya services, of whatever nature they be. And they're so beautifully trained that as if they were born in Qadian, as I remember the early days of Qadian, and were trained there. So I am very satisfied, and with the grace of Allah, I am always grateful to Allah that during my stay of about 11 years now, I have seen this wonderful transformation taking place. You see, previously there used to be just one or two figures in one or two departments, and they seem to be the representative of all the Ahmadiyyat in that area. Even during Jalsas, the same singers would appear every time. Even if they had grown old, there was no replacement. For every task which an old man performed, time and time again it was the same old man who was handed over that task, and whether he had strength enough or not, this was irrelevant. But now, as you see, with the grace of Allah, there are thousands in Ahmadiyyat who did not know what religious service was. Not service in the sense of the church service, but service in the ordinary sense, I mean. And who used to look from outside, and who were considered outsiders by those who thought they were at the helm of affairs and they alone knew how to perform Jamaat's works. And now it's a commonplace thing, not only commonplace, but sometimes I think the youth do things so much better than their predecessors that they have become models not only for the future but also for the generations which handed over them the task in certain area. So that is a very satisfactory situation. Allah bless you all, and may you retain these values and guard them jealously and never let them part from you. But the one thing which I mentioned I want to particularly emphasize is this. Now it's not a question of handing over these values to younger generations. It is now a question of handing over these values to the newcomers in Ahmadiyya, who are coming in large numbers, practically in armies. Things we used to hear about have started happening in Europe now. In Germany alone, with the grace of Allah, more than 6,000 Europeans have already joined Ahmadiyya during this current year. And more are coming. And the other fascinating news, which I am going to reveal during Jalsa, so be ready to listen to those wonderful things. But the shift which I can see now is from Pakistani European Ahmadis to European Ahmadis. Now this is a very important shift, although this is a glad tidings, but also it reminds us of our grave responsibility. We must train them as you have been trained. And we must train them in all the final qualities of the work which we have learned from Ahmadiyyat. How to perform things. As I have mentioned to you with reference to the conduct of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, with reference to the conduct of Hazrat Masih Maud Wasallam, and so on and so forth. So this is the most important and urgent task facing us today, and turn this Jalsa Salana as a revolutionary Jalsa Salana in this regard. I have already told Amir Sahib, I have already spoken to the in charge of ladies, that we must now enroll the maximum number of new converts to Ahmadiyyat this year, from this year and also from some earlier years. They used to come and enjoy participation in our functions, but always, if not entirely outsiders, but still outsiders, They roamed around, but were not a part of the system, so that they could carry some burden, some load on themselves. For the training of these people, for making them an integral part of Ahmadiyyat, it is highly essential that you train them with you as workers. Give them some load to carry, but only that much load which they can carry with pleasure and satisfaction. And when you do this, you will be surprised to find that among them would be hidden jewels of workers of which you had no knowledge. Among them would be people who would become model for you, like you became model for your older generation. And this is what I have witnessed myself in Germany, because during the Khudam Ijtima, or before the Khudam Ijtima, I had sent them this word, that I want you to employ as many Bosnians and other converts in your organization as possibly you can. Employ them and train them and make them an integral part of yourself, and see what happens. And what we saw happening was so moving that even sometimes it brought tears of satisfaction to my eyes. We have seen such wonderful workers developing very quickly. For among the newcomer Europeans, not only Bosnians, but from other European states as well. It was just ecstasy to watch them. And they were filled with such pleasure as they would never have felt if they had remained outsiders, just as guests. Because when they used to participate as guests, it was not the full pleasure of being in a system, as a part of system. They enjoyed things, but also they suffered the risk of stumbling here and there because of mistreatment at the hands of their hosts. But when they become hosts, that danger is no more there. It's impossible for them to conceive things from that angle. They become self-critical. They keep watch over their own behavior, and they try to please others. So that is why it's high time now for us to enlarge our circle of workers to encompass all the newcomers in this most wonderful system of volunteer work in the whole world. There's no doubt about it. Among the volunteer workers, there is nothing which can beat Ahmadiyyat. We are the very top of the thing, and yet we know that we have to go a long way to further improve our quality. So make this a revolutionary Jalsa and a model Jalsa for the rest of the European communities and the Western communities as well, by sharing the load with them or making them share the load with you. And during this course, train them also in those values which I have been trying to inculcate among you repeatedly, that is, the importance of prayer, the performance of 5-time prayers, the day-to-day conduct in receiving others and in becoming an ideal part of the system without creating any friction on either side. When I say on either side, I have some particular thing in my mind which is reminded to me through my long experience. I've noticed some people are excellent workers to those who serve under them. Some are excellent workers to those who serve above them. But some are only one-sided. Excellent, obedient workers, but to their bosses they look with pride and arrogance, and they think that if they disobey things and do not care for the bosses and do whatever they like themselves, and yet keep those who serve under them pleased, they think this is the ideal thing to do, then a compliment is paid to their ego. But this is satanic. It has no room in Islam, in Ahmadiyyat. Some people are kind only to those who are above them and are arrogant in relation to those who serve under them. This is hypocritical. Only hypocrites behave like this. So we have no room for satanic attitudes in Islam and Ahmadiyyat. We have no room for hypocritical attitudes in Islam and Ahmadiyyat. So be clear of these two, these two, what should I say, leaving the right path to the one side, what do you call it? Not deviation, then one word which is missing, huh? As you step out of the right path, either in one direction or the other, what is the right English word for that? Huh? Going astray. Stepping astray was the word which was missing me, and Mullah Khalil must have helped me. Thank you very much. Deviation is all right, could be applied, but it's not the right word which fills the gap here. As you remember that do not step astray in either of these two directions, because you belong to Sirat al-Mustaqim, and that is the middle path. So if you have a soft cushion for those who serve under you and a soft cushion for those who serve above you, or let's say in terms of machinery, if you are well oiled in both sides, in the side of your superiors and in the sides of those who serve under you, then there can be no friction. So keep this in mind and always seek guidance from Allah and His help, and train those who have joined Ahmadiyyat during this year or during some past years to become a part of Ahmadiyyat, whereby they acquire the attitude of being in the center of Ahmadiyyat, not outsiders. If they remain half-hearted about it, they always have the danger of falling back into the old system of darkness, losing themselves in the same old darkness from which, with the grace of Allah, they were guided to the light of Ahmadiyyat in Islam. So make them central to Ahmadiyyat, whereby they don't look at you as Pakistanis, as Africans, as this and that. They look at you as Ahmadis, and they have the sense of responsibility of Ahmadiyyat most in their own hearts. They think that they have to behave well so that other Ahmadis do not receive a shock from their conduct. Now this always happens when new Ahmadis become a part of the Ahmadiyya system of working, and automatically this is the attitude they acquire. Otherwise they go around with eyes down, sometimes critical eyes here and there, and they while their time away in only finding fault with other people's system and behavior and conduct, and particularly this unfortunate attitude leads them to associate Ahmadiyya not with Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah or with God, but with Pakistan or any other country from which they have received Ahmadiyya. Now, this is a very, very dangerous attitude which many a time destroys all the goodness in the people who begin to develop this attitude. There is a sort of religious racism which must not find any room in Ahmadiyyat, not even an iota of a room for in Ahmadiyyat. And for that danger in mind, again I emphasize the role, with that danger in mind, again I emphasize the role of making the newcomers a part of Ahmadiyya functions, a part of Ahmadiyya working system, and a part of Ahmadiyya services. If they become that, inshallah, with the grace of Allah, you will see fantastic changes taking place in them. And a time has come, as I have told you, where I can see armies of Europeans and the Western people joining Ahmadiyya at such pace that within a matter of 2 or 3 years, you will be outnumbered. And I assure you, that has started taking place. So when this happens, if you have failed to train them as your elders had trained you, then the responsibility of their faults and those faults which are passed on to future generations by them will also be shared by you. But I'm sure you are well capable of discharging these responsibilities. The warning which I'm giving you is not because I fear you will not be able to act according to my advice, but it is just a warning in principle. Although deep inside me I am fully satisfied that all of you here, the workers in UK, with the grace of Allah, are fully capable, are fully willing and fully equipped with training the newcomers in large numbers. So you can do that in 2 ways, and that's the last which I'm going to say to you. First of all, there is a regular nizamat here which deals with the recruitment of new workers. And that nizamat should keep their eyes open to any stray, freely moving European, whether he is an Englishman or a German or anything else, or a Spanish, whatever name you may give him, and befriend him and inquire from him if he likes this system, and inquire from him politely if you would like to serve. And most often than not, perhaps almost invariably, the response would be affirmative. But then here comes the most important thing. He should not be employed without going to the reference which he gives. If there is Amir Jamaat of that country, you must take permission from him before you employ him. If there is an Ahmadi friend who has come with him, you must speak to him and be satisfied as to that person's integrity and dependability. Then this department is authorized to employ such people, and inshallah that will be a good and productive experience. The second thing is, you yourself as individuals, you can also do that. You can see people walking around and you can approach them and befriend them and talk to them with kindness, and if you find in them a willingness to work, then you can report to the office in charge responsible for this. Take their addresses, tell them. If you find it work for them, you will contact them again. But do not employ them directly. This is what we are teaching them, a system. A foolproof system with the grace of Allah, which Ahmadiyya has developed with the special blessing of Allah. So don't sacrifice the system for the sake of employing people to serve in the system. So keep true to the principles, and then within the four walls of the principles you are free to do whatever you may. But of course, in the best of manners, as you possibly can. Allah bless you, and let's hope that no untoward things happen during this Jalsa Salana. If there are accidents, you should know what to do, and it is the responsibility of the heads of all departments to apprise everybody of his responsibilities, or the way in which he can react to certain situations which can happen here and there. Fires can take place, accidents can take place, thefts can take place, some pickpockets can enter the system, and how to be aware of all these things, and how to guard against the possible infiltration of the enemy to poison food or water or this and that. All eyes should remain open, and all eyes should remain alert in all these directions which I am pointing to you. And with the help of the prayer, if you perform your work as I have advised you, I'm sure inshallah everything will be fine. But one more thing, as far as the accidents are concerned and day-to-day common illnesses are concerned, some of you might have heard my homeopathic lectures, and some of you might have even started contemplating the idea seriously of becoming a homeopath. Here is an opportunity in systems like these. The immediate, available and cheapest and sometimes most effective treatment in cases of accidents or injuries or somebody suddenly falling in is homeopathic treatment. So I used to provide all the sections of the administration under me with ready-made homeopathic bottle medicines in larger bottles, with full instructions as to in which case this would work, in which case that would work, and so on. So if somebody, although your first aid is run under allopathic guidance, isn't it? But if they are unprejudiced enough against homeopathy, you can ask them to do this, and if they are not, then give them some assistant, just who knows something of homeopathy, who should prepare things, medicine, etc., and distribute them, and instruct them also. Not only the instructions should be pasted on the bottles, but still human beings require verbal instructions. So they should be instructed, and in that case, inshallah, many a time, with the grace of Allah, I hope not many a time, but rarely when you do feel emergency, I hope inshallah this homeopathy will also come to your aid. With that, let's join in silent prayer, please.